Hello, my name is Anthony, and I will be going over a Lab 1, Task 1, which is accessing the internet. The first objective is to enable forwarding on all machines, VM1, VM2, and VM3, using this command. So first, I will log into each VM. Pulling up command prompt so I can get administrative access. And so using this command on VM1, it should enable forwarding on this machine. So we see this. Now it's saying that this machine is enabled for forwarding. I will proceed to do the same thing on the other two machines. All right, VM2 is set up. All right, so now forwarding should be enabled on all three machines, VM1, VM2, and VM3. Now we'll proceed to change this file name and put this name server in and replace that for VM1 and VM3. So in VM3, I'm going to use the get edit command. So the name server is now set to 127.0.0.1. I'm going to be changing that to 8.8.8.8. Moving anything else that's not necessary. Save that. Close it. I will use VM1. I will do the same. I will change this to 8.8.8.8. Following on through the next step, I want to change the max transfer unit values on all machines using this command. If there's more than one interface on a machine, then I would change the MTU for both interfaces. And that one is going to be VM2, I believe. If we go back and look at our environment, we'll see that VM2 has two interfaces there. See, VM3 also has two interfaces, and VM1 only has one interface. So for VM3, I will set the max transfer unit for this for both interface 1 and interface 2. So VM3 is done. And VM2 is done. The next step is to change the default gateway on VM1 to the IP address of VM2, and making sure that it's in the same subnet. This will be done following these commands, route-in. So to get this started, I will go to VM1. By going to route-in, looking at the default gateway, 192.168.1.1 is not the IP address for the same subnet for VM2. So I will be changing that by typing in route del default route. Deleting the default IP address. Then I will check it again, route-in, to make sure that it was removed. We see that there's no longer the default gateway. So now I will proceed to add the default gateway of VM2 to VM1. Network is unreachable. Well, let's see what my default IP address is. So I'll go back to the lab environment. I'll look at the virtual machines. VM1 is 192.168.1.5. And the net for VM2 is 192.168.1.9. So incorrectly selected the wrong IP address. Now we see that I changed it. Now I should be able to look at, now I want to make sure I can enable the forwarding again. And now just to make sure, check the route. We see that the default gateway is now 192.168.1.9, and that is the same as the same subnet for VM2. So now the next step is to do the same thing for VM2. So I'll type route-in, looking at the default gateway. I will type in the commands route see that I removed that. So once we did change, delete the default gateway and add the new gateway, which should be the IP address on VM3 connected to VM2. So let's go back to our lab environment. We see VM2 and VM3 share net 2, and the IP address for the same net is 192.168.2.6. So I'll go back in here, add this address. Let's go back and look. 192. .16a.2.6. That's VM3. Let's go back. Make sure this is enabled. No such device. Well, okay, so I figured out what my mistake was. Big thing here, make sure that you have the right syntax for what you're trying to actually accomplish. See, I was just trying to add a default, but I didn't tell it what I was trying to add a default to, which is a gateway, which is matching the context here. So this should work. The route got added. I can just check and make sure that the forwarding is enabled. And I can also go back and check to make sure that it's in the table as well, which it is. So now I want to, the next step is on the machine of VM2, check the current firewall configuration using this command. So I can go ahead and type in that command. Syntax, IP tables. And as you can see, this will display the current firewall settings. So now that's done. So now I need to enable NAT traversal and forwarding on VM2 using these commands on the screen below. So VM2, I'm going to type in IP tables -a forward -I1. I will do the same thing here. Perfect. So now I've accomplished this step, which is enabling NAT traversal on VM2 using these commands. Now it wants me to check the default gateway on VM3 using this command. So go to VM3, get access back into it, and then check on the command. Check the default gateway on VM3 using this command, which I did. Change the default gateway on VM3 to something else other than its current one. Well, I want to change this gateway to the gateway to the internet access. So let me look at my lab environment, my network topology. I see that VM3 needs to have some address to get to this internet. So its external for net3 is 192.168.3.4. So I will go down here and I will use the commands route. Fix that. One second. Okay, so I just had to restart this VM so it didn't have that off scaling. So let me just bring this back here. So like I was saying earlier, I want to change the default gateway of VM3 so that's facing an external website. So I want to do this command. And making sure I have the right gateway, 192.3.0, and that should give me the IP address to the internet. I can check that again. I'll just go ahead and give it this IP address .1. And so after that, I should be able to send 10 ping packets from VM3 to VM1 to VM3 using the command ping the IP address. So let me give it a shot. VM3. Let's ping. Let's ping the IP address of VM3. The IP address of VM3 is 192.168.1.5. Whoops. And as you can see, it is working, transmitting, and it's sending pings to VM3 from VM1. I'll just go ahead and end that. Now, I want to send 10 ping packets to the destination 8.8.8.8 from VM1 using the ping address. So I use ping dot So as you can see, this is getting hung up here. It is not actually pinging out to this address. So I'll just go ahead and cancel that. There's 100% packet loss. So I need to go to VM3 and perform NAT traversal. Which is this thing. So now that I enabled NAT traversal on VM3, I should be able to access the internet. So let me go back to my VM1. Try this command again. And as you can see, the pings are actually reaching out to 8.8.8.8, sending ping packets through from VM1 to VM2 to VM3. And I will go ahead and cancel that. See, 14 packets transmitted, 14 packets received, 0 packet loss, and this is the time. So moving further on, it wants me to open a browser on VM1 and check if the internet works properly. Let me check VM1, see if this works. And as you can see, we do have internet access. So that does conclude my task 1 part of this project. My next video I'll be covering task 2, which is using Firewall. Thank you.